Savelle Laurie. We are glad you're here today with the YouGoin'Pro podcast, #1 podcast in the world that helps athletes develop proficiency, assisting their passion for the game they love. Today's episode is episode 44. Today's guest has a very long resume, I must say. He's a former Boston Red Sox hitting coach. Andy Burke is on a mission to help all hitters reach their potential at the plate and on and off the plate. He also helped the Boston Red Sox win a World Series in 2018. Andy's also began the tanker with a device in his garage that can be help hitters feel the right position to get in the wild while they're hitting and training to maximize their power. After several inventions working with youth, high school, college, pro hitters with the power pivot was born. Hitters began to train like a power pivot with regular basis and noticing the significant increase in the exit velo and ability to hit with more power. We'll talk about that later.
All
Hitters
right.
start to use their device not only in the cage, but also across the United States of America and also on deck circle as they prepare to hit. Also in 2017, Barkett was named the assistant coach for the very own World Series 2018 Boston Red Sox, working with the staff with his new manager Alex Coral, and his roles was I'm trying to read it. His role was to help as a bench coach and many more things. How you doing, Coach
I'm
Andy?
good. I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on your show. Anytime I get to help a Miami guy, I'm more than willing to definitely help out there. So appreciate
Yes. Thank you, man. We're gonna start from the beginning. Let's talk about the genesis, the beginning of Andy.
it. Oh, geez.
Starting, let's talk about that because a lot of times people, you know how people are, Andy. They look at your resume. You've done a lot of things. You've coached a lot of places. You've played as well. No disrespect. He's played also in the MLB as well, and people want to know the beginning. I want to try
hmm
to get them an understanding how this all originated. Let's talk about the beginning, high school, Andy. You
Wow.
know,
Yeah,
let's
we're
talk
going way
about.
back. We're going way back. Well, I grew up a Miami guy, Killian High School. Grew up playing, in the Corey leagues in Miami. They don't exist anymore, but Continental Corey League. Then we moved over to Flagami Corey League in the inner city, playing with a lot of Cuban American players
Okay.
and other Latin American players. I'm nobody in Miami is completely white Anglo-Saxon. We're all mixed somehow. So yeah, my Syrian grandfather used to own a grocery store right by the Orange Bowl, and my Cuban grandfather used to deliver RC Cola to his my Syrian grandfather's store when Miami was this big,
Wow.
back in the 40s and 50s. But so then, I grew up, in the city and loved baseball, and I think I fell in love with the game. My dad and my uncles, my mom, all big into sports, and they used to take me to spring training games at Bobby Maduro Stadium in downtown when the Orioles used to train there. And my
Wow.
uncle one time snuck me in the fence into the bullpen with the '78 Yankees. I'm 5 years old, and Goose Gossage is telling me to get the f out of the bullpen. And what are you doing here, kid? So I just always wanted to be in baseball, and then you start competing in Miami, and then it starts to become, at least it used to be, I don't know how it is anymore, kind of bragging rights for your turf, for your side of town.
Mm.
But now everybody's friends. It's all kumbaya. It's all travel teams and everybody's buddies. Back then, we would play Miami Beach on in American Legion baseball in the summer. We would be driving to Miami Beach and playing their team, and we didn't like them, and they didn't like
Right.
us, and
Right.
there might be a fight that night. And
Right.
that was just kind of part of the game. We didn't like Southwest High School. Southwest didn't like Killian High School. We didn't like their players. But then it's interesting. We all become adults, and then you end up meeting these guys socially or in baseball somewhere else, and you're like, "Hey, man, you're not. I hated you because you wore that purple uniform, but you're really a pretty good guy." One of my better friends is a scout for the White Sox, Wani Alvarez, and we were bitter rivals in high school. We could not stand each other, and then now we're like really good buddies. So anybody that grows up in Miami knows the fever of the game that you have. And I went to Killian, and we competed for a state championship in 1990. Lost to Lake Brantley, who was the national champions that year, and in boardwalk in baseball, which doesn't even exist anymore.
Right.
It was in Orlando, and that's where they held the state championship back then. Um, got recruited out of there, went to North Carolina State University, played 4 years, was a member of the United States national team, something I'm still very proud of. And then embarked on I thought I'd play pro ball for maybe 1 year and then come back and start a coaching career. And 29 years later, I finally, walked away from professional baseball. I don't know if it's for good, but in the last year, I've been just working as an independent, a hitting consultant, mental skills consultant, working online as well as in person, and just trying to help players get better. And it's been great. So, yeah, that's kind of the whole story told briefly. But yeah, I'm a Miami guy. I can relate to a lot of the people that you work with down there.
Yeah.
I was just a kid with a dream, wanting to play in the big leagues one day, and started, seeing people from my community that had done it, and that allowed me to believe that I could do it. That's one cool thing about Miami is if you look around, there's a lot of guys that have made it, and you're like, okay, you can kind of follow their blueprint. Like, yeah, they were good players, but what else did they do to get better? And let me try to do what they do. So
and it's interesting you said you went to Killian's. I'm thinking about, back then, we're pretty close in age for the most part, and I just want to say this. What was it like competing at that level? Because your school was pretty big. I mean, I coach here. I coach here as well in South Florida as well at a smaller school. And, but it's different than it was then. My question to you: why did you play baseball and not play another sport?
I guess, being 6 foot and couldn't jump and really couldn't run fast. I was kind of limited, man. You know what I mean? Like, I really liked basketball, to be honest with you.
Really?
Charlie Green Sr., God rest his soul, just passed away, and Miami-Dade legendary coach for years. I grew up with his sons, Charlie Green Jr., Mike Green, and they were, believe it or not, a basketball family more than a baseball family at the time. And so I love basketball, but listen, Killian has some dudes from Richmond Heights that could play. And I couldn't compete with those dudes. So, okay, basketball wasn't me. Then you get on that football field and you're like, there's some big dudes out here. I don't know about getting hit by those guys. And then I'm like, all right, I'm out here. So baseball was, I probably liked football and basketball more, but my skill set was more, anytime they threw that ball, I could hit it. And so I knew that was something I was really good at and wanted to continue to kind of pursue that. So
I get it. I understand because I'm actually from Chicago originally.
Okay.
Born and raised, a Midwestern guy.
Okay.
Living here in South Florida, and I always wanted to get to South Florida when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Always wanted to get it because it was always the best players here in South Florida, Texas, and California. And I could tell from coming from Midwest to here, there's a drastic talent level difference. People say it's not. Andy, people say it's not, but that's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true because I've had guys on the show, Andy, which you can relate because you're from here, and I've had guys from the Midwest. Now they coach college baseball, Division I. They coach minor league baseball as well, and they say, "Well, players are players." I said, "I beg to differ. Can you elaborate on something like that?"
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that just, when I remember going to college in North Carolina State University, and when I got on campus, obviously around some of the top players from North Carolina. And I mean, no offense to anybody else anywhere else, but, if you're one of the top 10 players in North Carolina and you come to Miami, they may not ever hear of you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's a different world, and you got to be a little tougher. You got to have some grit. You got to have some moxie. And you got to be able to play at a high level to grow up in that community and survive and thrive. And so, yeah, I don't really think that. And obviously, there's great players everywhere. And,
correct.
And yes, there's a lot of truth to, hey, if he's a good player, he's a good player. He's one of the top players in the country. Doesn't matter where he lives. That's true. But all in all, put it this way: you can have a player who may not be the best player in Miami, right? But he's solid. That dude can play somewhere in the country because he may not think he's one of the better players in South Florida, but compared to everybody else nationwide, nobody plays year round like they do in Florida, except maybe in Southern California. And so that's why those are two of the hotbeds of baseball in the whole country. So, I mean, again, no disrespect to any, there's lots of great players everywhere, but I think that there's just an abundance of players in Miami, and what you have to do to survive to play baseball growing up in South Florida. At a high level, you go through something. You go through some stuff, and you have to prove yourself. And so, I think the players there are a little bit ahead quite frankly, of everybody else. And if you really want it, those kids that are listening,
Hmm.
that play in South Florida, if you want to be a great player and you want to have a chance to play at a higher level, you can. Just work hard. That's really the name of the
Right.
game.
Well, Coach, you said that, and I had a habit of calling you Coach because you coach as
That's
well.
okay. You can call me coach.
Coach, I just want to say that because you're the very first person I've had on the show, and I'm at episode 44. So I've had 44 episodes, and you're the very first person from South Florida. So
Oh,
we can,
wow.
yeah, and I've had people from everywhere, from Canada, you name it. But it's good when you can talk to somebody that's in the same place where you're at, because you
Yeah.
can understand. Because I mean, and I want to talk. No disrespect to people that are from other places. You can't help where you're from, but I've
Right.
noticed. I'm just saying this because I coach here as well, and I train here as well. There is a little difference. And I'm not saying, I'm talking about talent wise. I'm not saying performance, but talent, just looking at the product, because
Yeah.
you still got to perform at that level, you know,
100%.
going back to where you went to high school. Can you recall of any challenges that you went through before you went to college? Because we're gonna get into college as well, but some challenges you went through as a baseball player in Miami.
Well, I mean, listen, and we know it's a tough place to grow up. It's a tough place to grow up as an athlete because of really the off the field stuff. There's so many distractions down there, and there's a lot of great players that never made it out of there
Yes.
because of getting into some things and starting to smoke weed or starting to drink and starting to party and girls and this and that and things that will distract you and take you off the mark. And listen, Miami's a great place, and nothing against it, but it's a tough place to grow up, and
Yes, it
with
is.
peer pressure and the decisions you have to make, because those decisions that you make will affect the rest of your life. And I always didn't make the best decisions there, and growing up, and I know a lot of my friends that didn't as well, and you can develop some bad habits along the way, making bad decisions as a young person down there. You're just exposed to more.
Correct.
People will argue this, but hey, listen, I went to school there, and that was 30, 40 years ago. I was exposed to things I shouldn't have been exposed to,
Hmm.
and that most people, when I went to college, weren't exposed to. But in
Right.
Miami, you are, and
Right.
so and the people that are the players that you train that are listening, they know what I'm talking about. I don't have to get
Oh
into
yeah.
detail, but
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so that really for me was the hardest part. The competition was fun. The
Yes.
the teammates were fun. The wearing the Killian jersey and wanting to beat South Miami and Southwest and Palmetto, that was all awesome.
Right.
It was the having to make those decisions and not trying to you know, lose my dreams because of bad decisions.
Right.
That's the challenge, I think, in Miami
Right.
more
Right.
than anything. So,
Right. You're right. I mean, I just want to say that because I want to make sure that we get some transparency as well, because not just baseball but life. Because on our show, like I said, one of our main goals is to help athletes develop proficiency. In other words, do the best with the situation they're doing at the highest level, on
mm-hmm,
the field and off the field. Because a lot of times we talk about baseball, but I want to talk about life. I want to
mm-hmm,
talk about God. I want to make sure people understand that what's out here, because today we live in a different age. We live in a different age and a different time. You know that. I mean,
yes,
I'm not preaching something that you don't already know, but you're helping the listeners understand there's struggle everywhere, but there's some places have more distractions than others. And we're not even talking about Andy. We're not even talking about social media. We're just talking about life.
I'm talking about
Okay.
the street. Yeah, I'm not even talking about social media. I'm talking about the street down there. I'm talking about the house parties. I'm gonna talk about,
That's right.
just walking to the park by the high school. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
the
saying?
beach.
Like,
Oh, the
yeah, the
beach.
beach. Yeah, I mean, just there's so many ways. I had a pastor one time tell me, you don't want to fall down. You don't walk in slippery places.
Mm,
Well,
I
the
like
city of
that.
Miami, the city of Miami is like a skating rink. You know what I mean?
That's
Like an
right.
ice
Oh yeah.
skating rink. It's
Ice skating.
slippery,
Ice
dog.
skating.
Yeah, it's
That's
slippery
right.
there, dog. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? So
You're right. I
you,
mean,
you got to be careful.
that's right. But I like that what you said, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be here.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to be here. But as the Bible says, much is given, much is required. And be
Hmm.
careful. And also, my grandmother used to tell me, be careful what you ask for. Because when you get it, you better make sure you're prepared for it. You know what I'm
That's right.
saying? So
That's right.
that's what I wanted to talk. But now let's talk about college, because I know respecting your time. But let's talk about this college because you went to Killian's. How was your recruiting then versus it is today? Can you talk about that as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, we didn't, we had American Legion games and we didn't play summer ball and we played to win. It was no, you're not dapping up your buddy on the other team. Like, you know what I mean? You
Oh
might be,
yeah, I know.
yeah, no, you might be giving him the finger, but you ain't before the game from across the field, but you're not dapping them up. It's just changed a lot in that perspective. But so yeah, man, it's just recruiting was different. I remember playing a Legion game at Slaneland Park, and Ray Tanner, who's the athletic director at South Carolina, was the head coach at NC State at the time. And he was standing under a tree, and watching me hitting the cage. I didn't even know who he was. We're
Really?
like, who's that dude over there? Well, he looks weird. He don't look like he belongs here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then finally, that's the NC State. Oh, gee, you know what I mean? And I got my shirt untucked and hat backwards and stuff. So thank goodness it didn't go against me. But yeah, it was a lot different, man. There's no PG rankings. Like coaches went out and recruited players and met players and got to know players, and now it's changed a lot. And so yeah, we went on a recruiting trip. Alex Gonzalez and I, my shortstop at Killian, played 12 years in the big leagues. He was a Toronto Blue Jays shortstop for a long time, and then with the Cubs. So people were coming to see him a lot, and I was probably the number two, player on the team, and so they saw me as, there's the other guy, he's pretty good too, and so,
Right.
I was kind of in the mix. Alex was getting all the attention and going on all the trips, and NC State, I think they really wanted Alex and thought they could probably get a 2-for-1 deal, and they ended up just getting me, and had a 4-year career there, and still in the record books for some stuff, and had a great career. We had a good run. Went to the regionals 3 out of 4 years. Won an ACC championship. We were ranked number 2 in the nation for 3 weeks my sophomore year, and we were number 1 seed in the regional Oklahoma State that year. Again, got to play on the U.S. national team with Hall of Famer Todd Helton and
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Todd Walker, a lot of good
Oh yeah.
players. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I had a really good college career, man. It
That's
was
good. That's really good, Coach. Because I was thinking about what you just said. You're talking about coming from Miami to North Carolina State.
mm-hmm.
How did you? I mean, coming from, let's just put it what it is, a wild state, a wild city. It's just the word wild. Wild can be
Yeah,
good too.
for
It can be
sure.
good. Going to North Carolina State. Now I've been there. I've
Yeah.
been down there. I know what it's like. How was that transition that you can help the listeners coming from a big city to a smaller city?
Yeah, I thought it was a little slow when I got to Raleigh. Quite honestly, I was like, man, y'all need to speed up some things around here. You're gonna get up to the Miami speed, which yeah, my teammates kind of shook their head at me a few times because like, who the heck is this guy? I was one of the first guys. I think they've recruited a lot of players from South Florida. A lot of Latin American players have come through my NC State, after me, and so yeah, I'm proud of that. But it was a little bit of a culture shock. I kind of took
Okay.
Raleigh by storm and had to learn some lessons. I came up there with the 305 speed, and NC State baseball wasn't ready for that. And they basically, I was starting as a freshman. Physically on the field, I could compete, but socially, I was living like I was living it, in Miami,
Right.
and that doesn't work in the real world. And so Ray Tanner, I remember, told me that I needed to go home and think about what my future was going to be. So I
Wow.
actually was going to go to Miami-Dade and transfer. And after having a good year, I just wasn't doing good in school, and he had given me some chances. And so anyway, I went to the Valley Summer League and got 2 A's in summer school. Was MVP of the Valley, won the championship, kind of turned my life around. And Ray Tanner accepted me back at NC State. I signed a contract that I couldn't miss a class or a study hall, and if I did, I'd have to kick rocks. And ended up, I realized that school's really not that difficult if you go to class and you do the right things, and end up
Mhm.
getting a 3.4, made the dean's list, and then end up getting a college degree and playing 11 years of professional baseball. So I'm thankful
Wow.
to Ray for believing in a kid who was a little bit off at the time, and giving me another chance. And so, because if I would have transferred down to Miami-Dade and done all that, I
Oh
would have
yeah.
gotten in some trouble and hung
Oh
out
yeah.
with my high school friends and been doing
For
stupid
sure.
things. So
For sure.
it was
For
a
sure.
blessing that I stayed up there and was able to complete my degree and
Yeah.
and then move on to pro ball.
It's good that you said that because I'm listening to you what you're talking, and you said also you talked about basically God put you there for a reason. And
Yep.
I'm paraphrasing it because I'm looking into what you're saying. You know, sometimes we see things and we think that, well, I want to go here, but it's not good for you at this season in your life because
That's right.
you're not mentally prepared
You're not ready
for.
for it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I said that because much is given, much is required. I always say that much is given, much is required. And as my grandmother said, I'm going to say it again. You have to be careful what you ask for because sometimes you could be asked for something you're not really mentally prepared for it.
Mm.
And then when you get hit with it, you're like, oh, well,
Whoops.
you
Yeah.
asked, you know, and that's something that I believe in. I come from my grandmother and grandfather, my mom, they were very good to me. I had a father as well, but my grandparents like put their foot on my neck, like literally on my neck. Coming from Chicago, you know, you're not doing that. Yes, sir.
Hmm.
No, sir. Thank you. Please. That's what we do. And, you know, that's what I wanted to say because it sounds to me that you had a very good mentor and coach that believed in you when you were doing things that you shouldn't have been doing. Let's just put it that way. Things that
100%.
you shouldn't have been doing it, and you know you shouldn't have, but the problem was you wasn't mature. You wasn't
No.
mature at that time. And a lot of times these athletes, which you can elaborate on, they don't want to be told anything. They don't want to. A mentor is like a bad word to these kids. A mentor, what I need a
Yeah.
mentor for? I'm 19, I'm 20, I'm 21. And can you I mean, coming from coaching, can you just talk a little bit about the power of mentorship? Because we talked about, you know, your business, you know, mentorship, the mentality. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think there's really not much more. There's nothing really much more important, I feel like, for young players than looking for somebody that's been through it before that can lead them and guide them. Um, I mean, mentorship is so important, you know, showing you the way. And there's been times where, you know, you listen to the mentor and you follow the mentor, and it's a, you know, it can help you. It can protect you. It can protect you from bad decisions, protect you from, you know, the ways of the world, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side, when you ignore the mentor, because there's lots of times that mentors have said, "Hey, maybe this way," and you're like, "Yeah, I want to do it this way." Well, you're kind of on your own because that person's already made mistakes doing it this way
Correct.
and knows that that way don't work. So they're trying
That's
to
right.
show you this way. And so, yeah, I think that listen, there's nothing more powerful for a young baseball player, and this is for like some coaching advice. The most important coaches I've had in my life were the ones that believed in me. And that's it. It's not the ones who taught me, oh man, your elbow, you're this, you're that. It's the ones who believed in my game and
I
believed in
like
me and says, hey, you can do something. I remember I had a coach in college. He told me I could play in the big leagues. That was the first person that ever told me that.
mm,
His name was John Ryan. I don't even know what ever happened to him, but he's like, you know, you can play in the big leagues one day. I was like, what? What he like? Yeah, you can. Well, you know what? I believed it at that point. I didn't
mm.
believe it before that till somebody told me. And
Right.
then he kept looking at me that you can play in the big leagues. Okay, well then you know what? I start telling myself I can play in the big leagues. And then you know when you start believing it, then man, just about anything can happen, right? So
Mm.
that was kind of my journey, and you know I try to believe in players. I don't sit here and tell everybody in the world they can play in the big leagues. If I
Right.
feel like
Right.
they can, I will. If I
Right.
feel like they can play in college, if I feel like they can do, I'm straight up with people. But I think mentorship is something that we have. It's our responsibility to give to the next generation, but it's also the next generation's responsibility to pay attention because I think this
Mm.
generation thinks that sometimes the mentors don't know anything, and maybe you know,
You're old
I
and you're old.
yeah, and I can look on my app or my YouTube and I'll figure something out better than you know this guy who's actually been there before. You know, so
Andy, I'm not laughing with you. I'm
yeah,
laughing with you, not against you. It's just interesting
yeah,
because I'm gonna read something to you, which you probably can relate to. This is Mark
okay,
9, Mark 9:23 said, and Jesus said it to him, "If thou can believe, all things possible to him that believe." And he's basically what you just said. You know, I believe that Jesus was a coach. And
hundred percent,
he's telling his players, if you believe, all things are possible because it's coming from the CEO of the universe, the
yeah,
CEO of the earth. He's telling us that if you can believe, all things are possible, but it has to come from him, not
yeah,
from you. And that's a mentor, right? That's a mentor nugget right there. I would say, you know, Mark 9:23 in the Bible.
hmm
I'm just saying
hmm
that because I'm a man of God. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. I tell people all the time, and I'm like you. I'm transparent. I tell you, even if it hurts. Now, I'm not going to curse you out. I'm not going to be ugly, but I'm going to give you some old school love. That ain't gonna work. It
Yeah,
doesn't work. You
doesn't
don't
work.
have. It don't work. I mean, you can try what you want. If you want
Hmm.
to, as my grandma used to tell me this all the time, you can go around the corner and hit your head 60 times, but on that 61st time, if you got a big nugget on the head, you got to look at yourself. You
That's
know,
right.
I'm just, because we come from the same cloth. Me and you come from the same cloth, just different parts of the world.
That's
And
right.
which I'm talking. Let's talk about this U.S. national team now, Coach Andy. I didn't know you was on the team. I was
Okay.
going to talk about something totally different, but now you're talking about the U.S. national team. Now, how did that come about?
Just got invited back then. The USA trials were in Millington, Tennessee. You went there. They had a
Right.
beautiful complex, that's when the USA team was just college players. It was no
Mm.
pros yet. They
Okay.
hadn't made that rule. So I went there with a bunch of the best players in the country, and we went at it for like a mini camp or training camp. Then they had
Wow.
cuts, and I was able to make the team as a bench player and go on tour. A Rod was actually my roommate.
Really?
Yeah, during the trials, and he was the first high school player ever to be invited to the USA baseball trials,
I didn't know that.
and so he ended up having a contract dispute with Tops and didn't stay with us, but he ended up leaving. But yeah, we had some great players and went around the country, went around the world, went to Italy, Nicaragua, Cuba, and got to play baseball. It was a lot of fun.
Well, so, who's one of those guys? Who's a couple guys that we can relate to that was on that team besides A Rod? Any couple more?
So Todd Helton just recently inducted to the Hall of Fame. Let's see, Todd Walker played a long time in the
Oh
big
yeah,
leagues.
Todd Walker.
Todd Walker, Dustin Hermanson was a right-handed pitcher in the big leagues. Paul Wilson was number 1-1 draft out of Florida State.
I remember Paul Wilson.
Jonathan Johnson was a little right-handed pitcher, pitched in the big leagues. AJ Hinch, manager of the Detroit
Yeah,
Tigers,
yeah.
was
AJ,
our
AJ.
catcher.
Okay,
AJ was there.
okay. That's
Yeah, I
good.
interviewed with a job. I interviewed for the a job with him last year, actually. So that was quite interesting. That
That
being teammates.
you guys are teammates.
We're teammates, and now he's the boss, and I'm the interviewee.
That's funny, Eddie. That's good. That's good news. I'm
Mhm.
just throwing out stuff like I said on this show. A lot of times people are expecting for you just to talk about what you did as a coach. I'm trying to get the beginning so people can got to get an understanding. Andy is human. He's human. He goes through things too. It just didn't happen overnight. Happenstance. It wasn't just a happenstance. It just happened just to happen. But which leads me to now. Let's talk about the pro type. Now you're going into
Mhm.
pro ball. Okay, let's explain that. To the listeners. How did that come about? You get drafted. What was
Yeah,
your
no,
expectation?
actually, yeah, no draft, a non-drafted free agent. It's kind of an interesting story. Back then, there was only one independent league, and it
The
was only
Frontier
20.
League, was it a Frontier
It
League
was the
then?
Northern League, the Northern
That's
League.
right. That's right. Northern League.
So and that league was full of ex big leaguers because there was only one league. So the league was like it was
Growing.
excellent back then. Yeah. So I couldn't. They weren't really signing college seniors just because the league was full of big leaguers. So I made my own spreadsheet before Excel existed on notebook paper. I put all 28 teams on one column, drew a line with a ruler and a thing.
Oh,
Then I put every scout's name,
I
line,
like it.
boom, and then
I like
everybody's phone number, no cell, no texting. You had to call them. It rang. They picked it up. It had a cord, right? It
I
might have been
like it.
cordless at that point. Put a thing. Yes, no, maybe.
Maybe.
I got 28 no's. 28 no's. I wish I would have kept a piece of paper. We didn't have phones to snap a picture of it, but the picture, it was no, 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 not even a dang erase on the yes and no. Um, but anyway, so then a family friend of mine who was an independent league scout, knew my dad, got me a job in Butte, Montana on a co-op team. Half the team was owned by Major League Baseball. The other half were filled by organizations where players didn't make teams yet. And they played in an affiliated league called the Pioneer League.
Mm-hmm.
It was the rookie league.
Right.
The Reds were there. The Dodgers were there. So you're playing against good players. So I'm up there. I go play. I go to Butte, Montana. It's like a last chance. And I was playing really well, and the Texas Rangers bought my contract, and out of the league and ended up in Charleston, South Carolina, where I finished the season in low A ball. And then I thought I was going to play that 1 year and see what happens. Next thing you know, 6 years later, I played to the big leagues.
Hmm. Wow. Praise God. That's a
Yeah.
blessing. Praise God. That is a blessing. I mean, you got a story. I mean, even though we know you're a great coach, but as a player, was that transition a lot easier for you to go from stop playing? Because a lot of times players have a hard time when giving up baseball, going to another profession. Was it harder for you, or was it easier transition?
To go from playing to coaching.
Yes. Yes.
Um, yeah, it was hard. I was a little bitter at the time. I actually got out of baseball and got in the financial services business and just didn't want to be in baseball anymore. I was kind of sick of it. It was just over it. You get 7 years in AAA, you get a little bitter.
Yeah.
And so it's not something I really wanted to continue to be a part of, quite honestly. And then Dayton Moore, who was the farm director for the Braves, ended up being the GM of the Royals. At the time, I was living in Orlando. We connected. He's like, "Hey, come. I know you're working in financial services. Come check out this program. We're teaching our players called Winning with Character." And so, anyway, uh, I went and checked it out. Next thing you know, I'm coaching for the Braves in rookie ball.
Mm.
And then I started doing that, and I'm realizing, what, I'm doing what I should be doing because these players need an advocate, and I
Right.
believe I can be one for them.
Right.
And
Right.
from there, I didn't really look back, and until recently, where the game has just completely changed upside down.
Correct.
I fit in the game as an advocate for players, and that's what
Right.
I'm very most proud of. But now it's not that way anymore,
No.
so
No,
it's
it's not.
completely changed.
Wow, it's that's I know that I'm cutting up some questions due to the fact of time. I'm trying to respect your
Hmm.
time. I'm gonna go straight. Let's go because I don't have a lot of time. Let me go straight to the opportunity to coach with the very own Alex Cora, the 2018 World Series. Let's talk about that. Now,
Okay.
you jumped from so many different spots. I didn't know that you were in the financial business as well, and I was too, by the way. I
Okay.
was I was a mortgage broker too. I did the same thing. I'm done with baseball.
Yeah.
I'm done, and I wound up coming back. But the question is, how did this assistant coaching job for the Boston Red Sox, and then you wind up coaching the 2018 coaching with 2018 World Series? How was what? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just got done managing in AAA that year with the Indianapolis Indians with the Pirates, and I was in an instructional league. And again, a little bit of bitterness. I remember it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I was driving into Bradenton. I just packed up the hotel. It was getaway day. We were done after the day's workout. I was headed home, and I'm at a stoplight at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got a DM on Twitter from Alex Cora. This is set 2017 winner, and I was like. It said, "I'm interviewing for Boston. You're on my list. Be ready." And I was like,
Huh?
oh, dang. You know what I mean? Like, so he's getting ready to get a job for the Red Sox,
Right.
and I'm on his list. And sure enough, he got the job. And so, bam. And next thing you know, I'm interviewing. Next thing you know, I'm going to Boston. Next thing you know, we're running this show, and we got the best team in baseball, and it was like baseball utopia. I mean, great
Wow.
players all working together. It was kumbaya from day one to the end of the season. All we did was grind and get better and work hard, work really hard. It was great players working hard with a goal in mind.
Mm, I like that, man. And you also had a chance to coach Mookie.
Yes, yeah, Mookie and I were really close and continue to stay connected and probably always will be. I was a part of the transformation of Mookie. The Mookie you see now
Right.
was not the Mookie that was there in 2017 before we got there, and he went under a swing change that year, and I got to be a part of that, and it was a really cool
And he's
experience
a
to be
good
a part of
he's a
that.
good he's from Tennessee as well. He's a good guy as well.
Yeah, he is.
From what
Yeah.
I know, I don't know much about him, but I know he's from Tennessee, Nashville, because I lived there for a short period of time, and I
Hmm.
noticed that a lot of guys from there have good hearts for the most part. For the most part, they have a good heart.
Hmm.
Humble beginnings and things of that nature. But I know we got a few more minutes left, but I'm gonna go into some last three questions that I'm gonna give you.
Go for it.
First question is this. This is the question. Who is your Mount Mount Everest? If you had to put four guys, you could put the four guys that's the four best guys that you've seen play as of now.
The four guys, best guys I've seen play.
or you believe are Mount Everest that will be on the rock up you
Uh,
had her.
I would say that I've seen play. I'd say Miguel Cabrera. I got a
Miguel.
chance to hit behind Miguel Cabrera.
Okay,
Um, I would say,
that's one.
yeah, I would say A-Rod. I mean, people can say what they want about him. He's one of the best players in the history of baseball. There's you can argue it all any which way you want, and some of his decisions and some of the way
Right,
he acts,
but
whatever. But
right,
listen,
but
I
player.
grew up with the guy. I'm proud of his career. I worked with him and worked hard and trained with him back in the day, and I'm super proud of the career that he had. I think he'd be up there too. We're gonna stay on the position players just because there's just so many that I could mention as far as pitchers as well. But
Oh yeah.
I'd say Miguel Cabrera, A-Rod, um, you know, Todd Helton would have to
Todd.
be would
Okay.
have to be another one. I'm a left-handed first baseman, and so I think that might be a guy I'd throw up there.
Okay.
Um, and numbers wise, he may not be one of the best of all time, but I'd have to say Derek Jeter, just because for me, he's like the Michael Jordan of baseball, just winning championships and being a leader and winning. And
Oh,
so I think winning championships has, and then if you're going to add one more, then I'd have to say Mookie Betts. I think
okay.
he's in the mix there too.
I like what you said because I never thought about Derek Jeter because he is like a form of like I would say Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant type, in baseball.
Hmm.
He's he's a great leader from what I've seen. Don't know him personally, but from what I've seen, he wants to lead. And a lot of guys don't want to lead; they just want to play.
Yeah,
They just want to play.
that's right.
But that's okay. But God's gonna give you that gift, and that's okay. But I've got two more questions, and I'm gonna close it out. Number this is a question. Can you share with the audience a play of the day that was not on ESPN that we don't never seen before that you can share with the audience? A play of the day that you've seen or you played,
Yeah.
coach. It doesn't matter.
No doubt, no doubt. So I'm on deck. It's somewhere on YouTube. Maybe somewhere you could find it, but probably it'd be tough. You'd have to know what you're looking for. You remember K-Rod, the closer for the Brewers,
Hmm.
all-star closer. So we're in Venezuela, and K-Rod's pitching for Caracas. I'm on deck, so I got a front row seat. Miguel Cabrera is playing, and I'm hitting behind him. We played on the same team and won a championship together in winter ball. And Miguel Cabrera is up with the bases loaded, and we're down in ninth inning in Caracas, and we're down in the finals of the championship of Venezuela. And I'm hoping that he either hits a homer or strikes him out, because I don't want to face K-Rod. He was the only righty I've ever been scared of in my entire career, because he would just throw that breaking ball. I could not hit it, dude. I couldn't hit it, and I couldn't stop swinging at it. So anyway,
Oh man, that's funny.
he took, it's 3-1, and the at bat, and just Cabrera's just spitting on the breaking ball. He's just not even flinching. It was almost like he had a tip and he knew what was coming.
Right.
And he got to 3-2, and you could just tell the frustration in K-Rod that this guy's not chasing any of his pitches. And I'd be like, what's he going to throw? What's he going to throw? And he threw him a 3-1, 3-2 fastball, and he hit that thing dead center for a grand slam to put us ahead, and we closed it out and won the game. And so that was one of the best at bats I've ever seen. And then Big Poppy, I played against him, played with him, and he hit a home run to beat my team, and it was a tremendous at bat. And he was facing Guillermo Mota in the Dominican League championships or playoffs in 2003, and Mota threw him a 1-2 changeup and 3-run homer. We lose the game, and Mota, was throwing his stuff after the game, cussing in the clubhouse, the whole deal about the changeup.
Yeah.
Finally, somebody says, "What about the changeup?" He goes, "I struck him out last week with a 1-2 changeup,"
Oh,
and he was
okay.
looking for it. And I was like,
Right.
"Oh wow!" So I was like, "That's a bad man,"
That's a bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
You.
"That's a bad man."
Yeah, yeah. And that's
So
good.
anyway,
That's good.
so
I
yeah,
got
those are two Sports Center highlights that nobody's ever heard of, but they
okay.
sit in my mind, and I can dial them up really
And
fast.
I got one more question for you. Now this is the last question, then you can close it out. Um, this is the question. So I asked everybody on the show those two questions. Just at well, three. This is the third question, and I'm gonna say this: you only have 30 minutes left, Andy. 30 minutes.
Hmm.
Who he can be dead or alive. Who is someone that you would love to talk to or ask a question that you never talked to or never played with or never coached, and why?
One baseball player, I guess.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be a coach. It could be dead or alive. Doesn't matter. And why?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would probably have to say, just now being in the hitting realm, I probably have to say Ted Williams.
Okay.
And I'd love to be able to just pick his brain and just talk hitting with Ted Williams. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, that's a tough question. Don Mattingly's alive. I'd love to sit and talk baseball with him. He's one of my heroes growing up. And Lou Gehrig is another one that you'd like to just say, "Hey, man, tell me about your career. People know about this about you, but what about this?" And there's a lot of guys, but Yogi Berra, I got a chance to meet, but never got a chance to really talk to. That'd be a cool one. So yeah, I'm kind of a baseball historian type person. So
Okay.
Ted Williams, I would think, just in the
Yeah.
hitting realm. I'd
Yeah.
love to be able to talk to Ted Williams right now and say, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that with all
Right.
the new teaching that we have
Right.
and the swing, which is basically the swing that he taught.
Okay.
Um, and he was way ahead of his game science wise and in the science of hitting. And so he would probably be a guy that I would want to talk to.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. You got quite a few. As something I want to say before we close out. You
Mhm.
didn't say anybody from Boston Red Sox. I mean, I'm just wondering. I didn't hear very many Boston Red Sox guys because after your Mount Everett as well. I didn't hear very. I heard Miguel, A
Yeah.
Rod, and I was like, he has no Boston Red Sox at all.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I threw Mookie in there in
Yeah,
the end.
that's right. That's right. You
Yeah,
threw Mookie
I
in
mean, I
there.
was only a Red Sox for 2 years. Now, listen, that place, has an impact on you, and it'll always be in my bloodstream. But I don't really. When you're in the game for almost 30 years professionally, the uniforms don't really do much
Yeah,
for you anymore.
I get
Like
it.
the city of Boston, that team, that stadium, it'll affect you, and it does, and I'll always have a place of. But I'm not really a fan.
I got you.
Like I don't watch baseball. Last year I watched 0 games. I didn't
Okay,
watch the World Series. I watched one at bat all year, and it happened to be Juan Soto's homer to beat Cleveland in that game.
I got you.
So I really don't. I work with players. I study, people. I study baseball as far as the hitting and stuff. But the game itself is messy, and quite frankly, I don't pay attention to it too much anymore. Just because it's not the same game that I grew
Right,
up.
right,
It's
right.
it's completely run and by different types of people now.
Right, and I respect that. I understand exactly what you're saying because they
Hmm.
don't do the things we used to do, what we were used to, small ball, bunt, whatever we need to do to win.
Yeah,
Everything is just about hitting the ball out the park all the
that's
time.
right.
It's nothing else, and there's more to it. But with that being said, I want you to close out, and then I'm gonna go ahead and close it out as well. If you want to say anything about Power Pivot, if people want to reach out to you, get your products and services, I would love to put that out there.
Yeah, powerpivotusa.com. Or you can find it Power Pivot USA on Instagram, and then Holistic Hitting is my hitting account on Instagram. Feel free to reach out and check out the product. It's really been helpful to lots of people. We've had the Atlanta Braves just bought a couple. Um, uh, Roman Anthony, top prospect in baseball, was one of my first clients to use it last year, and we helped get him his season turned around. I mean, I can go on and on. Boston College softball, Oklahoma softball has bought
Good,
4 of them.
good.
So yeah, we've it's been great. It's a way to teach the hitter to like really start the loading process, getting into their back hip, and so I'm super proud of it, and excited to see how we're going to do in 2025. It's really been a difference maker for lots of people. So powerpivotusa.com or powerpivotusa on Instagram, and or Holistic Hitting. You can find me and reach out, send a DM, say hello. I'm very accessible.
All right, and make sure you let guys know that the people that's listening. Make sure you heard it from the You Go and Pro podcast. Coach Laurie with Andy Barkett on the show, episode 44. But Coach, you want to say any closing remarks for anyone? Any closing remarks as well?
No, man, thanks for having me on. Anytime I get a chance to help somebody out down in the 305, trying to get and help out players down there.
I love
I
it,
wish I
man.
could do more for players at my high school and players in
Yeah,
South Florida, because there's a difference. They mean something to me. They're part of me. So
yeah, yeah.
at
And
least
it's
that's how I feel.
yeah,
So
and it's
I
different
appreciate
too.
what you're doing,
Thank you.
and thanks for having me on.
Well, God bless you, man. I appreciate it. And I want to close out, as we talk today in episode 44 of the very own World Series champion, also the coach, former coach, and also the creator of Power Pivot, Andy Burkett. My question to the listeners today is always ask this question. It is my very same question every episode. Where are you being led? LED. Coach, why do you keep saying it over and over? Because a lot of times we don't listen. The L stands for listen. Listen, and there's listen with your ears and not with your mouth. And also the word says faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of God. So the
Mm,
more you listen, the more you can impact. And if you can impact, you can execute, which leads me to the second letter. The letter is E, and the E stands for execute. Execute for what you just listened, and I can guarantee you the D will come up and it will say, what does D stand for? LED. The D stands for dominate. God has created all of us to have the power to dominate. That's what it says in Genesis 1:28. He
mm.
created us to dominate. But we can't dominate if we don't listen, execute, and then dominate. This is Coach Laurie, very known Savelle Laurie with Andy Burkett, the World Series champion 2008, and also the creator and owner of Power Pivot as well. If you want to get in contact, DM him as well. You're going to change your hitting and become a elite hitter. That's the guy to see. This is Coach Laurie. I'm signing out. God bless and never stress. Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it, Andy. Have a great day, man. We'll
You too,
talk.
man. Thanks for having me on.
All righty. Bye bye.